On this episode of Success is a System, we're going to be spending time with Steve Stafford of Metro Bank. Steve has been a bank manager and in banking at a senior level now for 38 years. There is very little that Steve hasn't experienced, from recessions through to good business, bad business, what makes businesses good and bad. And let me tell you, you might find banking or finance boring, as some people say to me, but it's one of the most important relationships you will ever have in business. It's the difference between successful business and failure. And the content that I'm going to be talking about with Steve today will help you understand what makes a business good and the mistakes that businesses make, or what are the elements that make a great business. Don't miss this session.
People don't chase the banks. There's this loyalty. You know, you speak to, I hear some great stories, when I see new customers or existing customers where they kind of say, well, I've been banking with this bank for 30 years, 40 years, because my parents opened a children's account.
Any business or person within 7 days can change from Barclays to Metro or Metro to Barclays, if that was the way they wanted to move. And that bank is regulated and controlled legally to have to support that smooth transition.
What will happen with Silicon Valley Bank, I think obviously, it's just where, obviously interest rates have kind of gone against them really. Obviously, they support a lot of the kind of tech business and bioscience business, and obviously, got a significant amount of deposits.
But the minute you change that language, and words are important, and you say we're after fans, you wouldn't ever be a fan unless you truly loved somebody, or they were, you wanted to see them. A fan wants to see the people who they're a fan of. I'm really pleased to be joined by Steve Stafford, who I've known for a couple of years. And Steve is the regional director? Or?
No, I'm the local director.
Local director covering Peterborough and Cambridgeshire for Metro Bank. And at this point, I want to make clear none of my podcasts are sponsored, so it's not about having a preferential bank. The reason I've asked Steve is because I think Steve is particularly good at what he does. And in recent years, I've seen Metro, in my personal opinion, outpace many other banks when it comes to really looking after customers and giving that service that is needed, particularly by businesses at the times that businesses need it. So firstly, thanks for agreeing to come here today. And, what I want to understand first is I know you've been in banking for many, many years, but tell us a little bit about Steve Stafford, where you come from, your journey through to being at Metro today, and just a bit of an overview of your career and upbringing that has brought you to be covering such a large area across Cambridgeshire. And,
Okay, well, thank you, Maya, and thanks for the invite today. So I've been banking, I think you're losing count how many years now, about 38 years now. So
wow.
Joined Midland Bank. A lot of people may have not heard of Midland Bank, but obviously they'll be, before HSBC took him over. So I started my career at HSBC in Stamford in 1985. I was 16 and a quarter, joined on the YTS scheme, only £27.50. I didn't do too well with my O-levels, so while I was in, working, I had to go back to college to do my exams again. So started off at Midland. I wasn't allowed on the counter for a year, so very much in the back office. And then obviously HSBC took him over in 1991, and I spent 20 years with HSBC covering all kind of Lincolnshire really. I think one of my proudest moments was going back to Stamford, HSBC as a branch manager in 2001. So being a local boy, back in being a bank manager in a local town was quite a highlight for me. And then in 2005, I moved over to NatWest in Peterborough. I was in the commercial team, was commercial banking manager then. And I think really over the years, I've really kind of enjoyed the business side, the commercial side, getting to know businesses, business owners, and really that's a part I really enjoyed. So I went on to NatWest, then obviously at RBS. Obviously got bailed out in 2008, and I moved on to the RBS side. And then prior to joining Metro Bank in 2017 to open Peterborough store, I was the director looking after the real estate team and the healthcare team for RBS across East Anglia.
Right.
On that.
And then joined Metro.
So I joined in 2017. They approached me saying, obviously I've been in Peterborough many, many years. Would I like the opportunity to open the Peterborough store? And I knew about Metro at the time. I didn't know a lot about Metro. Obviously, I knew a New York and coming bank at the time. They would have been coming up to 7 years old. Most of their stores, Metro Bank, we call it a store, not a branch, more around the southeast, around London. But I had a coffee with my current boss, who I used to work with at NatWest, and then obviously Metro was founded by an entrepreneur called Vernon Hill, and so I read his book. It's all about creating fans.
Okay.
And I read the first paragraph and all about the first chapter, and I read it. I think this is me. It's all about old-fashioned banking. It's about the customer. It's about service. And I think at the time I had 30 odd years, great years with HSBC and IBS, big banks, but things had changed.
Yeah.
And I'm still kind of very much. I like to be out seeing customers. Being out in the community, that's the best part of the job. And that's what Metro was about. Is the best way I describe Metro is old-fashioned banking but related technology. Really.
Yeah.
And so we opened on 29th of September 2017, and 5.5 years later, we're now looking after over 2,000 businesses of all different sizes and about over 15,000 personal customers.
And you cover a couple of branches now.
So I also look after Cambridge. So the area I kind of cover really goes from kind of South Lincolnshire, across Cambridgeshire, going into Norfolk.
Right. Well, that's great. And I want to get into some of those areas about customer, because when you're in, and my background was very much retail or hospitality and so on, and when you're in those sectors, it's all about customer is king, customer's number one. And we hear this from banks as well. But often I'll be speaking to my mentees and the different businesses, and, people see banks often more as the enemy than the friend, if you like. And they talk about, I'm going to change this supplier, I'm going to change this team member, I want a new partner, but they never think about changing banks. And so, firstly, part of the reason I wanted to meet today is your relationship with your bank is one of the most important marriages in a business that you're ever going to have. If it's a good relationship, you're going to get through the tough times. But equally, like in marriage, if it's a bad relationship, the minute it gets tough, it will fall apart. So, I want to understand and get into some of what makes a business attracted to a bank and what you think is important in terms of the way you help businesses. But firstly, I want to talk about, because a lot of the mentees I talk to say, oh, my bank are bloody useless. I'm turning over £4 million. I'm making £400,000 a year. And my bank have only given me a £20,000 overdraft. I've been with them all these years. They won't do it. And I say, well, why didn't you change your bank? If you were in a failing marriage and you tried for years to make it work and it still wasn't working, you would challenge whether you should stay in that marriage. But people don't even think about changing their banks. And the banks often, I think, keep customers more because of the buggeration factor of changing than because they deserve to keep those customers. I mean, what's your view on sort of banks and how easy it could or should or is to change banks?
Yeah, I think it's always interesting that really, because people don't change the banks. There's this loyalty. You speak to, I hear some great stories, from when I see new customers or existing customers where they kind of say, well, I've been banking with this bank for 30 years, 40 years, because my parents opened a children's account for me and therefore I will not change. Mm-hmm. Or when I was a student, they looked after me as a student and therefore I'll remain loyal. And there will be, and the conversation will go, well, I'm not happy, but I've been with them 30 years. So, I might as well stick with them kind of thing. And I think a lot of people also perceive that all banks are the same.
Right.
But, at the end of the day, if we move to another bank, it's just going to be the same old. So, but I think I remember quite often when I looked at businesses where I've got a second or third generation and you're talking about moving banks, and they said, well, my dad always used to say to me, well, it's okay, you might get divorced, but you never change your bank manager, you never change the accountant, you never change the solicitor. Yeah. So here you've got major stories like that really where people won't change.
And that's quite sort of amusing, but it's also memorable. And in fact, 3 of the relationships I often talk to businesses about the fact they do need to change is if your accountant's not saving you money and not telling you how you should be running financially and the structures and tax benefits and ways that you should manage that money, change your accountant. If your lawyer's not working with you to give you good solid contracts, good foundation, good advisory about how things are changing, change your lawyer. And equally, if the bank isn't giving you support and partnership that you need, change your bank. I mean, those 3 things are given that kind of almost religion level of commitment, but they're not earning it often. And part of the reason, I, as you know, I bank with Coutts Bank, but I also bank with Metro. And the reason I bank with Metro is they're open 7 days a week, and I can go in there 7 days a week. And the minute I open a bank account, I am told, James is your manager, Mike. Here's James' mobile number. And I can ring James 7 days a week. And I can ring James and I can say, listen, mate, can we catch up for a coffee? Because I've got some thoughts and I want to know how best to approach this. And James will meet me for a coffee. And people don't, they don't know about that. So it's a bit of a secret, I guess. Obviously in Metro, people know once they're there, but so many people don't realise, well, it's actually open 8 till 8 or 8 till 6 or whatever, 7 days a week. Yeah. What, and you actually have a bank manager? Because I think you were saying earlier that most days, unless you've got a £10 million turnover, you're not even going to get a bank manager in most banks, but I can have a £10 turnover and have a bank manager in Metro.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I moved to Metro, really. I think for businesses, okay, the larger banks now, the big, obviously looking after the big corporates. But how I look at it, these new startups, these new businesses, these managed-owned businesses, they will be your next corporates. If you look at them when they're, from the day they're kind of set up, the best part of the job is, helping the business grow and seeing how it develops. About business I've helped over the years, and just see now, business when it was just 2 guys and a secretary, now employing 50 people, now doing 6 million, 7 million, 8 million turnover. That's the best part of the job, really. And you help, and you feel that you played a part in that, and you're kind of growing with them on that kind of journey, really. And I think also going back to that kind of relationship manager is, look at COVID. 3 years ago when, Boris and Rishi stood, on the TV at night saying, okay, talk to your bank tomorrow about the coronavirus loans. Our customers, could pick the phone up to the next day and say, Steve, I saw the news last night. What do I need to do? And that actually shows the importance of that relationship. Because at that time, we didn't know what was going to happen at that time, did we, in terms of our business and funding and all this kind of thing.
I think that's a really important part of it. That firstly, they can ring up and say, Steve, as opposed to ringing some call centre that they don't know who they're going to be speaking to. That person doesn't know a single thing about them. There is no foundation of relationship to build upon. So even if they were having challenges, you might think, I've known these guys 10, 15 years. I've seen them grow in their business. So if they're struggling now, I know it's so much about them. I know that with a bit of help, they can trade through, as opposed to, let me see if they tick the boxes that the bank are putting up at this moment.
Exactly, yeah. And I think, so I think going back to, you asked a question about, 4 million turnover business, 400,000 profit, and get £20,000 overdraft. It's understanding, okay, why has the bank said that? So having that relationship, so, okay, if I can only give you a £20,000 overdraft, why is that? And if you having that conversation, well, we think it's £20,000 overdraft because that's what the computer says.
Yeah.
It's more about, okay, this is the reason why, and we go through the numbers, etc. The easy part being a bank manager is to say yes.
Yeah.
The hardest part is saying no. But it's how you say no. I often, when I get a situation where customers want to particular funding and it doesn't work, it's not affordable. But if you can try and go through the numbers, and I try and spend quite a bit of time on the numbers, and to go through the numbers with the customer. So actually, rather than me saying no, I'm kind of explaining my kind of concerns. But by trying to go through the numbers, say, oh yeah, see, I know where you come from now. I can see it now. Yeah. Okay, I need to do this different now. Okay, I get that. And then and then when they do come back, we're in a position where we can help.
Yeah. I mean, and part of it is understanding, just like as every human being has a different appetite or comfort with risk, the banks are the same as well. I remember the story of Disney going to 324 banks before he got the funding for Disney World. Now, if he'd have given up at the first or second or third or fifth or 10th or whatever, he'd have never got funding. Disney would not exist. But equally, some banks might have more comfort or appetite in construction. Others might prefer tech businesses. Some banks might, at the moment, be doing less businesses of a certain size. Others might want. And so, if someone does realise or get to the point where their bank says no, how easy is it to change account these days? Because having done it, I know that there are systems and controls in place that make banks have to support you changing if you want to.
Yes, yeah. And there's the 7-day switch guarantee scheme. And this is for businesses up to, say, 6.5 million turnover.
And that's a government-led thing, is it?
It's a regulatory event, yeah. So I think it's more on the financial services kind of brought this in, really, to make it easy. And it just works so well. Yeah. Because the idea is that the account will close on a particular day, the funds move into your new bank, all direct debits comes over, all your beneficiaries online banking comes over. If any of your customers pay the old bank, it automatically transfers over to the new bank for the next 3 years.
And that's a regulated control. That means that, just to reaffirm that any business within or person within 7 days can change from Barclays to Metro or Metro to Barclays, if that was the way they wanted to move. And that bank is regulated and controlled legally to have to support that smooth transition.
It's through it's a particular scheme all the banks kind of abide by.
Right.
Okay, so it's fair. What we do though, because people think moving banks is going to be hassle.
Yeah,
and therefore that's why
it's that buggeration factor.
It's going to be hassle. So what I always talk about when I'm talking to business, I say, it's all about trying to get them to, okay, it's like managing the project really, particularly in business employing 50, 60, 70 people, okay, and you've got lots of different parts of the business, how are we going to manage that? So it's all about getting the account open, getting all the online banking set up, so, and then obviously when everything's all in place, then having a discussion about when we move the account over.
Yeah.
I always say to business owners when I'm talking, say, yes, I'd love to come over to you, fantastic. I say, yeah, but I want to talk to your finance manager, because I need to understand your day-to-day banking. Because if your finance manager moves over and not happy, they can give you some earway. Why did you come over to Metro?
Yeah.
So I'll make sure that he or she is very happy and understand exactly what's going on. He or she will have that peace of mind, saying, okay, I get that, I'm happy to go ahead. Because sometimes more important to get those people happy, because they're the ones going to have to deal with it on a day-to-day basis.
So, and on that point, I mean, nearly 40 years in banking, 2 years' time, you have to have a big celebration. In that 40 years, you must have seen some amazing successes, but equally, you must have seen some really sad failures.
Yeah.
And, to me, the difference between success and failure is often the systems we adopt. And are there any sort of, Joe Valenti talks a lot about success leaves clues, and I talk about success as a system. Are there any sort of systems or lack of systems or specific areas where you think, if businesses fail, this is a common denominator, or when businesses succeed, this is a common thing that I see in them? What systems or procedures or approaches do you find?
Yeah, I think in terms of when you see businesses have failed, and it's often very common, is where businesses have not retained the profits in the business. The faster business is growing, the faster obviously the money's being taken out. Obviously, to fund a business, you need to make profit to fund that kind of growth. Obviously, if you don't leave that capital in, then obviously you may end up taking more debt. And I always talk to customers about, and I want to use an analogy about a tree. As a business grows, as a tree grows, and the taller it gets, if the roots don't grow with it, as soon as there's a bit of wind, it's going to topple over. As soon as like a bit of recession starting, you haven't got the roots of that tree, it's going to topple over. But if you kind of invested and got that kind of, your balance sheet is showing, a strong growth in going with level of turnover and profitability, when you do go through a bit of a difficult time, the roots are there, and it might be a little bit windy, but the tree remains standing up. Yeah,
it was interesting. I was talking to one of my daughters at the weekend, and there is this kind of facade that some businesses build or people build around success, and so they make a little bit of money, they go out and buy a Rolls Royce or a Ferrari or a Range Rover or so, when really their business is only at a size there where it's going to be supporting a Ford Mondeo or something. Nothing wrong with that. In fact, it's far more sensible, horses for courses, to spend according to the money you've got, but they overspend. And she was saying, a lot of these influencers, you see on social media, how they might go out and buy one really expensive handbag, but they'll share the handbag, they'll buy it together, so 10 of them, but they'll each get shots and images and that with that handbag or car, or they'll go to one of them will get a hotel room, but they'll all take shots in this big list. So it's all just bullshit and smoke and mirrors to create this facade of success that is not real. And then they'll either, maybe even sometimes they don't buy it, or they buy it and take it back a day later after they've got all their content with it. And so the problem is that puts pressure on other people to think, if I'm successful, I must have a Range Rover, or I must have holidays that are in these big glitzy places, and yet it is that kind of, it's a facade or a tree that looks really big, but it's got no roots that are going to hold it when it gets windy.
Exactly,
as such. So keeping cash in a business, it is so obvious once you've had the tough times and you've been blown over a few times.
And cash is king at the end of the day. It's not about profitability. It's cash. It's that cash, that cash cycle. And if business wants to, have a nice big house and cars like this, when you're doing your forecast, you've got to build that into it. Your kind of remuneration package, that is just a normal cost, any other cost in that business. So if you want to do that, you build that in, but many businesses don't build that part into it. Put all the business costs into it, but very rarely often won't put their kind of own their aspirations, what they want. Because you can build that in. If you okay, I want that, what I want. Okay, this is what I need to deliver, and I can manage that going forward.
Well, and equally, when things start going wrong, at any point in time, with 40 to 50 mentees that I'm mentoring every month, there'll be 4 or 5 of them that are really, really struggling and going through it. And one of the first things I'll say is, have you spoken to your bank about this? Have you spoken? Oh no, I don't want to tell the bank that. And I say, they can see it. There'll be triggers and alerts that are coming up anyway because of some sporadic or changing behaviour. But if you go and tell them, at least they know. Because if you leave it to the last minute, you ain't going to get their support. So what if I was working with any bank? What degree of communication is best? Is it sharing a business plan every year? It's not something I have to do, but how do you look differently upon customers that are more transparent with you and tell you where they're trying to go, how they're trying to get there, and so on? What's the kind of perfect relationship with you from a business point of view?
I think every business is different. I think one thing, going back to what you're saying about kind of systems, etc., what I've seen over the years and what works and doesn't work. And you may know, obviously you run many businesses. When you own business, it can be quite a lonely world.
Yeah.
You kind of got, you employ lots of different people, but you're wearing lots of different hats. When things start to go wrong, you can't really confide in terms of your team, whatever. You've got to show that brave face, everything's all good. But having someone you can talk to and confide to and just, get some, weight off your shoulders. I think, again, that's what bank can be there for, to listen. And business owners to look after, I still do look after. And she says to me, Steve, you're a very good listener, and we speak, we meet on a regular basis, because this particular lady, she likes to share the information. She's unbelievable, the information she's got, spreadsheets, you name it, she loves to share that and where she's going. And I think that's great, because obviously when they want to do something, I know where the business is going. I haven't got to spend 3 hours going, okay, send me all this information. I already know where they're going.
And because of the level of controls and spreadsheets and detail she has, that she knows that as well. Because so many businesses, I'll say, what's your turnover this month? I don't know yet. What's your turnover this year? I haven't had the accounts back yet. And I think, shit, I knew my turnover and profit roughly by the hour, let alone day or week or month. And yet many businesses 3 months after the year end still don't know how much profit they've made.
Exactly. Well, many businesses will not file their annual accounts until they've got to do it 9 months after year end. And they leave it to the last minute, either whether that's because they want to pay the accountancy fee or pay the tax.
Yeah.
But if you've got a problem that previous year, you don't find about it 9 months later. You're already 9 months into your this year before you can start changing things. So things like that, I think, again, it's good about having a team around you as well. If you've got an accountant you can talk to and understand your figures and help you, because, you're good at doing what you're doing, whether it's selling or whatever you're doing, that's what you specialise at. You need the team behind you. Whether it's a bank, you need your accountant, who's there to support you and say, okay, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? Actually, you need to hold back.
I hope you're enjoying Success is a System. Every Tuesday, we launch it on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. Drop us a note and tell us who you would like to see or hear on Success is a System, or what subjects you'd like us to cover to help you and your business. Success is a System. Like, subscribe, and make sure you get it every Tuesday for great lessons and systems that have made people wealthy, healthy, and successful.
Well, and that's a really interesting point, because even if you are a sole trader or a singular leader within a business, you might think, well, I can't share this, I haven't got any partners. But you have got a banking partner, accounting partner, a legal partner, or you should have. And talking to those with the experience they've got, if you're managing hundreds or thousands of businesses across the area that you look after, I think you said it was 2,000 in Peterborough, you're seeing the good, the bad, the ugly. You're seeing those that are riding high during a period and those that are really struggling. And so you should be almost their first port of call to say, do you know anyone who's doing good? What are the people who are doing good doing differently to what I'm doing, or what's best practice at the moment, and so on. And I knew when a business I built with partner Tom Fender, the bank we had at the time said we love partnerships, and part of the reason we love partnerships is because if one of the two is down, the other can lift them. If one of the two is going to do something that feels a bit erratic or irresponsible, the other one will say, hang on a minute, stop this. And so in a partnership, God forbid, even if one of them dies, there's still someone to run the business. Whereas someone who's on their own, they don't feel they can share with their team because they don't want to share their problems with the people who work for them. They don't want to take it home to their partner often, but they forget that they've got a banking partner, they've got an accounting partner, and so on. And I know you do quite a lot. And I don't know actually if this is a Metro thing or a Steve Stafford thing, but you do business breakfasts, and you do where you invite people down to the bank and you have an hour and you get a speaker and you talk about different things. Is that something that you do, or is that a Metro thing?
It's a bit of both, really. Metro, we want to be the best community bank. But to do that, you have to demonstrate that. So what we like to do is, use our store. We've got by inviting people in, gives people a chance to come into a Metro store. If you've been in Mike, it's very different to a normal kind of bank. But if we can connect people together, that's best. And again, it's just another way we can add value to businesses. So that we do this breakfast first Wednesday of every month. We have a mix of different people come in, but it's I can just stand back and just watch all these businesses all talking to each other, exchanging business cards, because if they're all helping each other locally, and we're helping helping the local economy.
You're building those partnerships.
Exactly, and again, it's another way. It's not just about we offer banking products. What else can we do? We like to signpost. Have you thought about did you know these grants are available? So it's all about what we can add, where we can add value to that business. It will happen with Silicon Valley Bank. I think obviously. It's just where, obviously interest rates have kind of gone against them, really. Obviously, they support a lot of the kind of tech business and bioscience business, and obviously, got a significant amount of deposits. They use those deposits, which they need to, in various bonds, whatever, but with increasing interest rates went against them.
Right.
But then, obviously, I think because what happened maybe in 2008, as soon as, anything negative about a bank...
Everyone starts pulling their money.
Straight away, and then you can see how quick... the kind of confidence level went down so rapidly in the space of 24, 48 hours.
And there was talk like, you never know how much it's social media, but, Oprah lost $500 million in that, and different people lost money. Realistically, what sort of risk do people run if they have got a lot of money in one bank, or do they, or don't they?
Well, customers are protected to $85,000 with the financial compensation scheme on that, and that is standard. Okay.
And is that so is that if I've got an account and my wife's got an account and my kids have got an account, are we all individually protected?
Yes, on that.
But if I opened two accounts with one bank, that wouldn't protect me twice.
No, you only get one protection.
So it's the person on the banking platform, because sometimes the same bank, a couple of banks can share the same structure. Is that right?
I believe so. But it would be £85,000 per customer per bank.
Right. Okay.
So I think on a personal situation, you do get a lot, particularly over the last few years, where customers will spread. They will do $85,000 per bank. It's very difficult for businesses to do that because obviously, first of all, challenge to try and get an account open in the first place. So we do see more often now where a business may have two or three banks. Not just from a point of view in terms of making sure that their cash is safe. It's also the practicalities. If the online banking went down with their bank for a few hours, they've got a backup. On that. Maybe that they want to have that relationship as well. You want to have 2 or 3 banks to kind of work with.
Yeah, and often in construction specifically, we might have we will have several SPVs set up. Some to do the management of a property, some to do the construction of a property, and so on. So we'll spread it across different business entities within a group structure, some for tax and some for kind of whatever that business is doing to keep that speciality in place. So, and again, that's something that people should speak to their bank about or their accountant about, or both. Because what people assume that my accountant should tell me everything, my bank manager should tell me everything, but we're human and we only know what we know. We don't know what we don't know. Yes, and so to me, I always say that, if you had the chance to speak to, let's say you were wanting to be a budding footballer and you could speak to 11 players and get tips and training and mentoring off 11 players, why would you only speak to one?
Exactly.
So, when it comes to learning those skills, people don't need to become an accountant or a bank manager, but they need to understand the importance of finance to their business. And I often used to say that in any business that I've ever had involvement in, the finance person, the FD often, was the person who most frustrated me, because often they were telling me what I couldn't do rather than what I could do, but they were also the most important person to me in that business because the numbers never lie.
Yeah.
And there's no problem that a bucket of cash can't fix in most businesses, but you need to understand the importance of money and how and when it will be needed and what you can leverage and pull on when you have a challenge, I guess. I've always appreciated bank managers and accountants tremendously for the support and advice and relationship I build with them. So let's talk a little bit about business. A business wants to open a bank account. There might be a startup or there might be transitioning across from their current bank because they're just not getting the service and support, and it's been that way for a while, and they've tried to speak to them and can't get to speak to them. Now, let's say they're going to come to Metro or another bank. What's the ideal sort of information or plan or business plan, or what's the perfect package of info or approach they could make to you to make you think, yeah, this is exactly the kind of business I want or we want in the bank?
I think that's a good question. I think, again, you see so many different businesses. So you see some businesses who've got a fantastic kind of product or service, and you can see, that they think, yeah, this can really work, but they're kind of lacking. They haven't got the numbers, haven't got the people behind to support that. So again, I think from a bank's point of view, we can help that business. Okay, right. I think you've got great concept here, but obviously, first to lend you money, we're going to need X, Y, Z. And obviously, that's not their forte. And you can say to her, okay, oh look, can I introduce you to someone? He will help you. He or she will be able to help you on that. And so you try and signpost them so they can get them in the place so that they can be in a position where they can approach a funder to help with their business going forward. It might not be at the time, because at the start, it may not be ready for a bank yet. It might be more equity funding. Again, it's giving that kind of advice and support and guidance and signposting. Then you get business comes in who knows their figures, do all their homework, and would have been talking to got the right people. And then, obviously that's a fantastic situation in terms, because obviously it's all about how we can, we're obviously looking to agree a particular loan. It's how you can present it to the underwriter.
Yeah.
And if you've kind of got a business where they've done the numbers, they've done the sensitivity, they've looked at the what ifs and built that all into it, you think, well, this business knows what they're doing on that.
Well, it's funny, it's kind of separate but connected in the sense that I remember when I was working with a homeless charity, and it was a YMCA Time Stop, and I was helping these kids get jobs. And they could access some funds to put shirts on and trousers and tie and all that stuff. And I'd be coaching these young 16 to 25-year-olds that were homeless. And we had some companies that were willing to give them a chance. And I remember a couple of them would say, I'm not putting that shirt and that on, I look like a geek kind of thing. And I'd say, well, you need to package yourself. If they don't like me as I am, then I'm not interested in working for them. And I'd say, it's not that they don't like you as they are, but it's like a first date. If someone doesn't make a bit of an effort on a first date, you assume that's them at their best, and you assume it's only going to go downhill from there. So the way we package ourselves and our business is, we've got to package it up to show our best side. And so I think a business that comes in, that's got a business plan, that can tell you their product, maybe even bring their product and show their product and have all their numbers and know their numbers and be able to answer some basic questions, you then get more confidence that it's the kind of business you want to open an account with or you want to have within the bank. Yeah. And it's not about not wanting to know the real person behind it, but first impressions count, don't they?
You do, but it's not. We also make sure it's not numbers. I've never seen a cash flow forecast yet or projections yet, but it doesn't work.
Yeah.
They always do. They always work. So so we also, what's just important is that person behind the business. What's their background? Where they've been? What experience have they got? One of my managers, you work for an HSBC. Every time we have a lending paper for him to approve, his first question was, have they gone through a recession before?
Yeah,
they've been there, done it, got the T-shirt. So it's all about also, you know,
anyone can grow in our market. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's all about, you know, so yes, numbers are important, but it's just as important, it's that person. At the end of the day, you are believing in that person, you know, you're lending money to that particular person or people, and therefore, you know, do you think they've got that capability? Have they been there, done it, got the t-shirt? Have they got the experience? You know, and that's just as important, really, in terms on that when a bank's considering a particular request. On that.
And a lot of that is about getting to know the person. And you talk a lot in previous conversations about the importance of customers, the importance of people, the importance of community and connecting and so on. And when we're talking about systems, I often talk about, so what are the systems that you're using or the bank use to connect with people? And the best way I often think about it is, if banks all say the customer's king or the customer's our primary driver, and I think I could speak to 1,000 of your customers and I know the majority won't rank you as being like that. So they won't feel like they're most important. Your behavior doesn't make them feel like customers are most important, but it always did with Metro. And so I say, imagine you were in a court of law and you'd been accused with having great customer service. What evidence would you give to show that you do? And, you know, what I know you do it, but what are the kind of systems and approaches that make a great bank manager or a great bank? Because it's not about being the teller necessarily, although that's one important interaction. And I know you get out into the community and out into business. And perhaps for the benefit of people who don't know you, the listeners, talk about a typical month in terms of how you network, where you network, what you do that isn't necessarily traditional banking. Yeah,
and I think, yes, okay, Metro, we do obviously a lot on the customer service. At first, you know, we don't spend money on advertising, that kind of thing. So first service is essential, because in the day we deliver great service in our store. The customer walk out that door and they'll tell their family and friends and that kind of thing, and that does work. And I can, you know, the numbers show that.
I've done. Yeah.
Exactly. You know, we are very, very different. But I think from my own point of view, in the day, it's like, and you know, I look after Peterborough and Cambridge, so I see it's my own business. You know, for me, I've got to bring new business in. I want to create lots of new customers. I want people to see it and want to be happy with us. Last night I was looking, you know, we ask customers fill in a customer satisfaction survey, and I've got the results from last week for yesterday. And I've done that, you know, in our store with Peterborough, we served, 1,500, 2,000 customers last week. But when I looked in last time, we had 3, you know, in Net Promoter Score, we had 3 what we call detractors, 3 of people unhappy. To me, that's 3 people too much. So
even 3 out of 1,500 or 2,000, some people would think, well, they're just 3 mini moaners or something. But
to me,
they're important to understand.
Yeah, because I look after Peterborough. That, you know, that to me, that's not acceptable. You know, and you know, I've got a fantastic team, but there are always going to be reasons why. So driving in this morning, I'm talking to my store manager about about the situation. What can we do to learn from that? On that. So again, so that to me, you know, and that's, if you say to a customer you're going to do something by a certain time, you make sure you do it by that, because in the day is, if you want to be, you know, you go out and promote what we are about, but if you don't deliver that, then people say, well, it's just the same as any other bank.
And what about some of the systems for that? Because I noticed, for instance, whenever you walk into a Metro store, and I've seen it in lots of different ones, not just Peterborough, but within about, 6 or 10 steps inside, there'll be someone who will say to you, hello, good morning, how can we help you today? And then they'll point you in the right direction. Or you don't need to go to the counter or whatever you call it. Fred or Mary can help you. And most banks don't have that welcomer or whatever. What do you call it? I mean, what's the?
Well, we have one now, managers who will welcome a colleague in. Sorry, not colleague, our customer into store, and they'll be, you know, straight away as soon as they walk in and say, how can we help you? And then we offer them tea, coffee, so little things like that makes all the difference.
Yeah.
You know, again, going back to the customer satisfaction survey, people say, I can't believe I got offered a cup of tea. Well, it's nothing, is it? But I've never had it, you know, they say, well, my bank's never offered me that.
I've been there 30 years, never had a cup of tea.
No, so little things can make a massive difference, and that's what we're all about, you know, in our store. You know, we have dog bowls, bring your dog in, you know. Don't
and there's water there for it.
And going back to, you know, I said to you earlier on about Vernon's book, you know, creating fans, it's simple things really, you know, it's everything you know about customer service, but I think people forgot about. And so that's going back to the basics really.
That's a really good system that any business can adopt, rather than thinking customers or shoppers, which people will say stupid things sometimes, like it would be all right if we didn't have to put up with the bloody customers, they're a nightmare, or sort of thing. But the minute you change that language, and words are important, and you say we're after fans, you can't, you wouldn't ever be a fan unless you truly loved somebody. Exactly, yeah. Or there were you wanted to see them. A fan wants to see the people who they're a fan of, and it's a bit like, aim for the stars, you might hit the moon or whatever. But if you are aiming to make everyone a fan, you've got to go above and beyond a customer interaction, haven't you?
And I think the problem is, so sometimes we set, it's like going back to like the first date, you make the effort. The problem is, so our challenge is we set the bar high.
Yeah.
Once you set that bar, the second time they come in, they're going to expect the same. So it's always about, well, we need to make sure that we deliver the second time, third time, fourth time, because as soon as we don't, well,
so it's not just about first impression; it's about an ongoing delivery.
Exactly, and the colleagues we employ, we can, it's easy to teach someone how to open a bank account. So it's all about, we hire for attitude. So I have a particular business card. So if I'm in a shop, restaurant, whatever, and I get a fantastic service, I'll give that waiter or waitress whatever my card. Say, look, I also think outstanding. If you ever want to have a chat, it's my number.
Yeah.
And that's what we want, because at the end of the day,
that was the first thing that blew my mind. The fact that I would get numbers, and it wasn't an office number that I could ring 9 to 5. It was a mobile number.
Yeah.
That literally, shit, I could ring any time. And of course, 99% of people would never abuse and ring on a Sunday morning unless it was really important or something. So there's this kind of acceptance that people could ring any time, but most of the time they'll ring in a reasonable time.
Yeah.
That's great. So I'm conscious of how much time we've spent, and to me, I truly mean it when I say to people, your banking relationship is one of the most important relationships that you have. If we build on the word relationship, that means about you wouldn't marry the first person that you kiss, boy or girl, but you'd want to know that you got the right person. Don't go and join the first bank that you get. Ask them what they're going to do for you. Think about what you need in a business. Think about how they might support you when things go wrong, and it's all of that. So what I want to understand though is, if you were going back, 38 years in banking, 16 and a quarter, no qualifications, you do your YTS, and that starts your journey. But 38 years in now, if you could give 3 snippets of advice or systems or approaches to your 16-year-old self that said, Steve, if you do this, you'll be happier, more satisfied, more successful, or you'll get there quicker, what might be those pieces of advice?
I think the first thing, as I say, I left school with 2 O levels, but it's, I set myself a goal. I want to be a bank manager. I want to be a branch manager. Never thought I'd get to where I am today, but through its hard work and determination, I think it's always going that extra mile. Where can it be better? I like to exceed expectations. Again, you come back to that service, is to deliver great service. Because if you do that, then you can then earn your customers' trust. A big thing to me is trust. So if you get so big part of my job is business development. So I'm going out talking to other banks' customers on a daily basis, and a lot of them I've been talking to 3 or 4 years, and build that relationship. I never go in being arrogant, say, come to me, I'm the best. I've never got a good relationship with their bank, but I want to be the first person they turn to when they kind of, actually, their bank manager's moved on, whatever, I'm not happy now. Who's going to phone? I'll phone Steve.
Yeah, I'll phone Metro or phone Steve.
I'll phone Steve,
or James. Or
Exactly. So I think, when I look back, and then I said to me, I've got 4 children, it's all about, it's hard work, putting yourself out there. I live by doing it today. I'm outside my comfort zone. Right. But I tell my managers who work for me, say, look, be outside your comfort zone.
And then you grow.
Exactly. Yeah.
So there's some bits of advice. Step outside your comfort zone, set goals, build trust, and over deliver, and so on. That's great advice. Equally, if with all those years of banking, if there were 2 or 3 systems or tips that you would give to businesses, what might they be?
I mean, the first one is build your team. As I said before, being a business owner can be a very lonely role. Have a mentor. Obviously, I know that's what you do, Mike. Have someone you can talk to, have someone who's going to challenge you. Have a relationship with a bank who's there to support you and can have an honest conversation with you. And again, with the accountant, make sure you've got the right team around you. Know your numbers. Keep know where you want to do, and set yourself aspirations. What are your goals? What do you want out of the business? Where do you want to be in 5 years? One big first question I always ask: where do you want to be in the next 5 years? Where do you want to be in 10 years? What are you doing about how can you get there? And I think the third one really is be open with your bank. If you start seeing issues, 99% of bank managers will go out their way to help you. If you tell them what your problems are, they'll go out their way and they'll fight your corner with an underwriter. They really will. But you need to be honest with them.
And those few things, setting goals. Have you got goals? Most people don't. Have they written those goals down? Most people don't. They try to hide their problems from their partners and their banks. Not only are they not good at hiding it, but the banks probably know anyway. And if you can't tell someone a problem shared is a problem halved. If they don't share it, then you can't half it. And I think it's really important. And the other thing that you said was know your numbers. It blows my mind how few businesses know their turnover, know their profit, know where they're heading, know what their margin is. And these might not be comfort zones they have, because they might be a great plumber, a great chef, a great retailer, a great technician in whatever they do. But if they don't learn enough to know their numbers and read those numbers and understand a cash flow and understand margin, they'll never truly be successful in business. And yes, they can get someone who can help them with that, but you can't run a business without having at least a base understanding of those numbers. And I think on that note, there's been some great tips and advice, and I appreciate our relationship. I see what you do in this city, which is well above and beyond, and I appreciate that. And I know that if people listen to these podcasts, there's a lot they can learn. And I often, when I listen to podcasts, I'll listen to them a couple of times, sometimes normal speed, sometimes faster, but often you get the best lessons on the second or third listening, and people, because their mind starts going in a different way and they forget the next bit. But, there's some great advice in there. I really appreciate your time.
You, Mike. Really enjoyed it.
If you've enjoyed, like, share, subscribe, drop me an email or at info@mikegreen with an e on the end.co.uk. Tell me who you'd like to see interviewed. Tell me what questions you'd like answered from a mentoring sense. Look forward to seeing you again. Thanks very much. Bye for now.